Hi guys, in this lesson today we are going to continue our work with measuring using informal units. This time we're going to compare different objects' length using informal units. So comparing means you look at one and you look at another one and you see how different or the same they are. So we're going to see if we can find objects that have the same length or whether they have longer or shorter lengths than the other object. So today I've got like a playing card that you play cards with, and over here I've got a box of matches, and I'm going to use these matches here to measure the length of this card. Then in our next screen we'll have a look at comparing that to another length. So we'll have a practice go together here. So I've got one match here. Now, is it any good if I start measuring, say, up there like that? No, that's no good because we need to start measuring at the same point, the end of the card. So looking at there, around about there. So I need to put my matches at the end of the card. Now, I grab another match out of my box, and do I overlap it like that? No, it's got to be end to end. So I put it right on the end like that. And I grab another one and I put it end to end there. So I can see, looking at this playing card, that it has 1, 2, 3 matches along its length. So that I could describe the card's length as 3 matches long. So now we've had a little bit of a refresher at measuring using these informal units. Let's have a look at comparing. So I do the same thing as I did before. I take my matches, and let's have a look here, making sure I'm very carefully lining the matches up end to end. And this time I can see that this one is almost exactly the same as the one I measured just before. It has 3 matches long. Now, looking at this card on this side here, I can probably guess that it's a bit smaller, but it would only be a guess, so I really need to check to see if it actually is shorter or longer. Maybe it's exactly the same. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to have a look. So I'm going to grab a match and I'm going to put it right on the end of the card, and another one. And I might have to make another one here. There we go. Now, I can definitely see that this one is not 3 matches long. So, this one was 3 matches long, but this one is less than 3 matches long. So it's a little bit more than 2 matches long, but not quite 3 matches long. So I can definitely say that this card here is longer than the other card. And I can say that this one is shorter. So that's how we compare using informal units. Okay, so let's have another go at that. This time I'm going to use a different informal unit. I'm going to use a hand. Hello. So I'm actually going to use the finger part of this hand. So I'm going to use this pointing finger here, and I'm going to look at these 3 matches and see which one I think is the longest this time. Now, just by looking at this, I could probably guess, but sometimes the way that the matches are laying, or you might have quite a few matches that are very close in length, so we can use informal units to compare and work out which one is the longest, or maybe they're the same. Let's have a look now using this finger. So I'll start with this one. So I'm going to use that part in between my 2 fingers there. See, and I'm just putting that match end right into the little part between these 2 fingers where the skin is there. And I'm lining the match up alongside my finger. And I can see that this match is probably just a little bit less than my fingertip there. So it's just about 1 finger length. Let's have a look at another match now. Let's have a look at this one here. Same place again. I put the match right in that part of my finger and I line it up with my finger. And I can see that this match is a fair bit less than my finger length. So that must be shorter than the first one we measured. So it's definitely not the longest one, so we won't be calling that one the longest. So let's have a look at this one now. Same again, I line up the match with my finger, and I can see that this one's quite a fair bit longer than my finger. So if this one was longer than my finger, and this one was about the same length as my finger, which one of those two is longer? Yeah, that's right. This one here is the longest. Can you remember which one was the shortest? Yeah, this one. That was the shortest one there. All right, once again we're going to look at comparing. This time we're going to compare the length of these two roads that are crossing over each other. And I'm going to use cars to measure the length of the road. So I'm going to start on this one, and I'm going to measure car end on end. You can see I've got the back of the car lined up with the back of the road, and keep measuring along here. Are you counting the cars? Okay, so let's have a look here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars, and it's almost exactly 6 cars, just maybe a little smidgen over 6 cars. So we can use that to help us measure the length of the other road. Now we want to see if it's longer or shorter or the same. All right, let's have a look. Right on the end of the road, end to end, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's my 6th car. Now if the car sticks out past the road this time, it means that this second road is a bit shorter than the first road, because on the first road the 6th car goes almost right to the end. On this one we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a bit, so it's only 5 and a bit cars longer. So we definitely think that this road here is the longest of those two roads. Okay, in this one we're going to use this piece of string here to measure and compare the length of these cars. So as we've always done, we hold the piece of rope on the end of the car so that the end of the car and the end of the rope line up together. Now I can see here, if I use a little finger, that my car lines up with about there on my string. Now I can be a little bit more accurate there and hold that across right on the longest part of the car. Now I can put my finger, and when you're measuring with a string you can also do the same. You can kind of pinch the rope or put your thumb and finger and hold the rope at that spot where the end of the car is. Now on mine here I'm also going to put a little line to mark that there. So now I can take my finger away, and on my rope I can see I've got that mark there for that first car. Alright, so I might call this car A, and you can see the colour of the mark that I put on there matches that. Alright, so now looking at this second car, let's have a look at this. Same piece of string. It's going to carry my A with me, but that's okay. Put that back there. Alright, so looking at my same piece of string, you can see I've got my rope right on the end of the car. Now I can see the mark from the other car was way up here, so I can already see this car is shorter, but I'll go ahead and I'll mark it about there. Okay, and we'll end up calling this car B. Alright, so far, out of the two cars, you can see on my string here that the ready colour line from car A is definitely longer. Let's have a look again. I'm going to flip it right around, put the string on the end of the car, red part right on the end of the car, and I'll make this one blue, but I can see if I mark here the end of my car, and don't forget I could be holding my finger there to mark the spot, rather than because you can't use a real pen to measure on a piece of real string, you'd use your finger to hold the mark. So you can see here that car C, which I'll just label here, car C must be the longest because it has a little bit longer than the red one and a fair bit longer than the black one. So there's my three marks there, A, B and C, and A, B and C shows that C is the longest of the cars. Looks like B, which is the black one, is the smallest or the shortest, and the red one, which is car A, is in the middle. Now finally, I thought I'd show you a little bit extra. Using rope or string can be quite useful for measuring the length around round shapes too, curves and things like that. So I'll show you quickly how that might be done. Now I'm not using real string obviously, so I'm just going to use my pen to show you kind of how it would be done. So looking at the circle here, circle A, I would put my rope down and I'd curve it around the edge as close as I can to the edge. And wherever it sort of meets back at the start, I could put my finger on there, just on the part where it joins back to the start. Okay, and then when I unwind it, I would have something like this, a straight piece of string. I could even trim off the string to that point where my finger was. So that was maybe what A looks like. Then I would do B in the same way. Put it at the start, wrap my string around the curve, and then wherever I put my finger to hold the spot where they'd match up at the ends, I could trim off the piece of string there. And I might end up with a piece of string that looks like this for B. Now I'll do C, and I wrap it around the outside of the shape, and I could put my finger there to mark the spot where to cut it. I cut the string off, and when I unwind it back straight out again, it would look like that. So can you see which of those three circle or oval shapes is the longest around its outside? Yep, it looks as though this one is the longest and A is the shortest. So that's how we use informal units to measure and compare the length of all sorts of different objects in all sorts of different ways. Now it's your turn to practice, so go back and have a look at a practice task and see how you go with comparing length using informal units.